What's going on, everybody? Preacher Reads here, and I want to talk about some spooky season reads that everyone else is not recommending. If you've been watching any spooky season recommendations, you've probably heard a lot of the same books. I know I am to blame for that. I talk about House of Leaves and Stephen King more than I talk about anything else, with a little bit of The Fisherman in there. But what I want to do today is talk about some books that haven't been talked about as much, but I think you should consider checking out this spooky season. So let's look at 8 spooky reads that I think are a little bit underhyped and you should check out. All right, so let's dive into these 8 books. I'm going to read you the back cover, tell you a little bit about what I thought about each one of these, give you an opportunity to decide whether or not it might be for you. And maybe all 8 of these are books that you haven't really heard of yet, and I'd love for you to check them out. All 8 of them are going to be a little different. I tried to make them slightly different subgenres of the horror genre as a whole, so they're not all going to be the same style, very different. So let's start with the first one, and that is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. I'm thinking of ending things. Once this thought arrives, it stays, it sticks, it lingers, it dominates. There's not much I can do about it, trust me. It doesn't go away. It's there whether I like it or not. It's there when I eat, maybe when I go to bed. It's there when I sleep. It's there when I wake up. It's always there. Always. I haven't been thinking about it for long. The idea is new, but it feels old at the same time. When did it start? What if this thought wasn't conceived by me, but planted in my mind, pre-developed? Is an unspoken idea unoriginal? Maybe I've actually known all along. Maybe this is how it was always going to end. I'm Thinking of Ending Things is such an interesting psychological horror novel. This author does not hold your hand. It's very quick. It reads really fast, but the whole time you're wondering, what is going on in this narrative? There's a lot left out to leave you wondering what's actually happening. You're in the head of the narrator and they're thinking about ending things. And that might mean what you think it means and it might not. And you're not going to be told. You need to just enjoy the ride, be creeped out by the descriptions of what's happening, by what's going on in the head and through the eyes of the narrator. Check out I'm Thinking of Ending Things if you're looking for a psychological horror this spooky season. Next up, we've got one that I actually just finished and it just released, and that's Galloway's Gospel by Sam Rebelane. 2009, Rachel Galloway is bored in class. She spends the dreary fall days sketching in her notebook, adorable pigs munching on her boring teachers, and imagining a utopia where all the horrors of Burnskid High School disappear. But when her classmates start to believe this utopia could be real, Galloway finds herself at the center of an elaborate and quickly spreading new religion. And before long, the town is split between believers and unbelievers. As tensions rise and the rituals become more dangerous, Galloway can't be sure what's real and what's not, or who she can trust. In 2019, there's a cryptic message that Renfield County Guard Rachel Durwood receives from her colleague Mark, mere days after he disappeared. Mark's note leads Durwood to the town of Burnskid, famously sealed off from the rest of the county 10 years ago. Now she discovers a small, isolated community preparing for the rapture and seemingly their collective demise. In order to save Burnskid from itself, she must piece together the fallout from 2009 and avoid being swept up into this monstrous cult herself. As Rachel Galloway watches her life spiral out of control, Rachel Durwood navigates a world where history, horror, and faith collide. Despite being separated by a decade, Galloway and Durwood may be closer to each other than they realize. But even together, will they be able to stop Burnskid's impending doom? Like I said, I just finished this one. I got an art copy from the author and it has released. And this is such a cool play on the cult concept. You're in 2 different time periods, 10 years apart from each other. One where this cult is being grown out of the imagination of a high school girl, and the other one which is involving the fallout of what has happened because of this cult that has grown in this town that seems to be awash with the supernatural. The supernatural happens so much in this town that they're just used to it. And it's such a cool and interesting premise that I think Sam nails. You should check this one out. It had a really good vibe. It was not quite as wonky as some of the more silly horror books that I have read, but it definitely wasn't also as serious as things more like King. It had a good middle ground there where it didn't take itself too seriously sometimes, but it also genuinely took time to be a horrific novel. Next up, I have one for you more literary folks, and this is the author Nick Cutter, but not writing under the Nick Cutter pseudonym, and that is The Saturday Night Ghost Club by Craig Davidson. When neurosurgeon Jake Breaker operates, he knows he's handling more than a patient's delicate brain tissue. He's altering their seat of consciousness, the golden vault of memory. And memory, Jake knows well, can be a tricky and quicksilver thing. When growing up in 1980s Niagara Falls, a seedy but magical, slightly haunted place, one of Jake's closest confidants was his Uncle Calvin, a sweet but eccentric misfit enamored by occult artifacts and outlandish conspiracy theories. The summer Jake turned 12, Calvin invited him to join the Saturday Night Ghost Club, a seemingly lighthearted project to investigate some of the city's more macabre urban myths. Over the course of that life-altering summer, Jake not only met his lifelong best friend and began to imagine his own future, he came to realize that his uncle's preoccupation with chilling legends sprang from something painful, buried so deep that Calvin himself was unaware of the source. This book was so interesting to read on the heels of reading some Nick Cutter. Nick Cutter is very into body horror. It's very fast-paced. It's very much modern horror. And this definitely had more of a slice of life literary feel to it, but it does have horror, and I do think that it's done really well. If you enjoyed Boy's Life, if you enjoy any of Stephen King's coming-of-age work, I think that you're going to enjoy Saturday Night Ghost Club. Check it out, and also this edition with the paper the way it is, it's just beautiful. It's distressed on purpose. Absolutely love it. You should check this book out. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next up, we're going to throw a little bit of cosmic horror in there, and that is A God in the Shed by J.F. Dubois. The village of St. Ferdinand has all the trappings of a quiet life. Farmhouses stretching from one main street, a small police precinct, a few diners and cafes, and a grocery store. Though if an out-of-towner stopped in, they would notice one unusual thing. A cemetery far too large, much too full for such a small town, lined with the victims of the St. Ferdinand killer, who has eluded police for nearly 2 decades. It's not until after Inspector Stephen Crawley finally catches the killer that the town discovers even darker forces are at play. When a dark spirit reveals itself to young Venus Mackenzie, a resident of St. Ferdinand, she learns that this creature's power has a long history with her town, and that the serial murders merely scratch the surface of a past burdened by evil secrets. This was such a cool take on combining a serial killer with something supernatural, this god that exists in this town that may be connected to the reason why there's been so many deaths. I don't want to give much more away than this. Thoroughly enjoyed this book. It is very dark, it is very bleak, and it definitely has some interesting cosmic vibes. It is not lighthearted at all, though. It takes itself very seriously, and I definitely think that it nailed it. You need to check out A God in the Shed. This is probably one of the ones that I think is least talked about on this list, but it shouldn't be. Next up, we have a weird one, and that is Fiend by Peter Stenson. When Chase Daniels first sees the little girl in the umbrella print socks tearing open the Rottweiler, he's not too concerned. As a longtime meth addict, he's no stranger to horrifying drug-fueled hallucinations. But as he and his fellow junkies soon discover, the little girl is no illusion. The end of the world really has arrived. The funny thing is, Chase's life was over long before the apocalypse got here. His existence already reduced to a stinking basement apartment and a filthy mattress and an endless grind of buying and selling and using. He's lied and cheated and stolen and broken his parents' hearts 1,000 times. And he threw away his only shot at sobriety a long time ago, when he chose the embrace of a drug over the woman he still loves. And if your life's already shattered beyond any normal hopes of redemption, well, maybe the end of the world is an opportunity. Maybe it's a last chance for Chase to hit restart and become the man he once dreamed of being. Soon he's fighting to reconnect with his lost loves and dreaming of becoming a hero amongst civilization's ruins. But is salvation just another pipe dream? Propelled by a blistering first-person voice and featuring a powerful and compelling anti-hero, Fiend is at once a riveting portrait of addiction, a pitch-black love story, and a meditation on hope, redemption, and delusion, not to mention one heck of a zombie novel. Fiend is the book that has probably been the longest since I have read. Read it in my early 20s and really enjoyed it. It plays on the concept of drug addiction and being a zombie, but in this book, being addicted to drugs is actually helpful to staying alive and to not becoming a zombie. And so the main character is trying to win back the love of his life and survive, but also has to play with his addiction problems in the midst of it. And I thought it was really well done. Pretty lighthearted, very fast-paced, first-person novel. This is probably the one on the list that if it is actually bad, it's been long enough that I wouldn't be surprised, but I remember it really fondly. And it's got just a cool cover, super unique premise for a zombie novel. If you're looking for a zombie novel that hits a little different, check out Fiend. Next up, we've got one of the most horrifying books on this list, and there's actually no supernatural elements at all, and that is The Dinner by Herman Koch. It's a summer's evening in Amsterdam, and two couples meet at a fashionable restaurant for dinner. Between mouthfuls of food and over the scrapings of cutlery, the conversation remains a gentle hum of polite discourse. But behind the empty words, terrible things need to be said. And with every forced smile and every new course, the knives are being sharpened. Each couple has a 15-year-old son. The two boys are united by their accountability for a single horrific act, an act that has triggered a police investigation and shattered the comfortable, insulated worlds of these families. As the dinner reaches its culinary climax, the conversation finally touches on their children, and as civility and friendship disintegrate, each couple shows just how far they are prepared to go to protect those that they love. I want to give away as little as possible about The Dinner. Just know that you are at a dinner with two families and something awful has happened involving their sons, and they've got to deal with it. There's a tension to this book because you never really leave the dinner, and you know that this conversation needs to get somewhere, and it almost takes too long to get there, but it works, trust me. You need to read The Dinner if you're looking for something that is horrific, but is rooted in reality and things that could happen tomorrow and may happen today, and how people deal with grief, how people deal with the sudden realization that those they love may be evil or may have committed an atrocious act and they don't know how to respond or what to do about it, as their defense mechanisms for those they love butt up against their moral compass. You need to read The Dinner. It is fantastic. Next up, we got the one that I want to say the least about, but I need you to trust me, and that is Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach. In an attempt to make sense of his own mysterious and unsettling childhood memories, a man begins to reconstruct his past. As the games and adventures of his youth become engulfed by a larger story, he finds that it forms a tapestry of unbelievable horror that he never could have expected. Each chapter completes a different piece of the puzzle for both you and the narrator, and by the end of it all, you will wish that you could forget what he never knew. This book is so weird, and I want to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. Just know that it jumps back and forth between different timelines. It's more like a puzzle you put together alongside the narrator who's remembering what happened to him as a child. If you want probably the weirdest read of this list, I'm Thinking of Ending Things or Pen Pal are the way to go. There's not much I've ever read that is like this. This is not taking a Stephen King idea and running with it. This is not doing what most modern horror does. This is doing something extremely unique, and it reads a little unpolished, but that's okay. I thought it was fantastic. Pick up Pen Pal. Please let me know what you think when you read it, because it is a weird one. And last but not least, maybe you're looking for a small town witch story, and that is Hex. Welcome to Black Spring, the seemingly picturesque Hudson Valley town haunted by a black rock witch. A 17th century woman whose eyes and mouth are sewn shut. Muzzled, she walks the street and enters homes at will. She stands next to children's bed for nights on end, and everybody knows that her eyes may never be opened or the consequences will be too terrible to bear. The elders of Black Spring have virtually quarantined the town by using high-tech surveillance to prevent their curse from spreading. Frustrated by being kept in lockdown, the town's teenagers decide to break their strict regulations and go viral with the haunting. But in doing so, they send the town spiraling into dark, medieval practices of the distant past. What a book. This is a modern horror gem. This witch story is so unique. It's so weird to be a part of a town who just gets to watch a witch walk around and not be able to do anything because her eyes are sewn shut and her mouth is sewn shut. So she can't utter any of the curses or do anything that could hurt the people around her, but that may change when the young people realize that they're kind of stuck here and they want something bigger. But is wanting something bigger going to cause the town to fall apart? I loved this book. I thought it was so fantastic. More people need to be reading this. This is up there with the modern horror gems. And I know he's got some more books that I haven't read yet, but I thought that this one was brilliant. All right, guys, that is 8 horror novels that you could consider this spooky season that you probably haven't seen in any videos this year or talked about much. A little under the radar, but well worth your time. Please let me know in the comments if any of these really stuck out to you, if you plan on maybe reading them, or if you have read any of these. Let me know in the comments if you think that they're great picks this spooky season as well. Let me know what you're reading this spooky season. I'm excited to dive into some awesome new horror that I'll be talking about this month. Please please subscribe. Join the Book Street Boys Discord if you haven't already. It's a great community. You can find that link down in my bio. Thank you guys so much for hanging out and have a great spooky season.